Welcome to Siam Technology College's Sustaining Success Series, also known as S3. This sustainability education podcast aims to showcase the diverse roles and best practices in sustainable business, climate change, and net zero, ESG, creating value, and other sustainability topics that inspire both learners and leaders through real-world examples. I'm your host, Ryan Frazier, Special Advisor to the President of Siam Technology College and Managing Partner, CEO of Frazier Global. I'm joined here by my co-host, Mr. Art, STC Professor and Sustainability Education Program Associate. Today, we are joined by a very special guest that we are pleased to have, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐢𝐧𝐢𝐬𝐿, who is the CEO of Hamerkop. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Mr. Art, for having me today.
We're excited to have you because, what you do is so interesting and unique, Olivier. But before we get into the details of what you do as an expert in, not just the carbon markets and carbon credits, but, in sustainability more broadly, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, I studied a fairly different field. I was preparing to do, something else, and I trained in business and finance, and I entered the job market in 2008 when one of the most recent and strongest financial crisis hit. And so the market the market I was prepared for didn't exist when I started my career, and so I rapidly needed to switch and started exploring the world of carbon finance, which was starting very new at the time, and starting volunteering for conferences that were offering carbon finance content to network with professionals in the fields before I landed an internship for working for a small consulting firm in the field of carbon finance in Paris.
Now, being in carbon finance says that you must have a passion that drove you in this direction. Tell us a little bit about what you're passionate about that caused you to kind of want to start Hamerkop and to really become an expert in your field.
So what I like about carbon finance is basically, running all around the world to support projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, whether it is forest protection, new forest, energy saving, waste management, or improving transportation. And I really like this field because it combines, quite a few things that I'm passionate about. Finance, environmental cause, a worthy cause to fight for, international travel, and a very broad diversity of stakeholder engagement. So really combining things that had been looking for into a job, and finding this at the beginning of my career was a game changer, really, and that enabled me to work in this field. At the time it was extremely small, jumping from one small consultancy to another, being exposed to a broad range of project situations, traveling across sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, to support a renewable energy project, to support energy access, to support decarbonization of electricity systems. And because it was new, I had easy and quick access to decision makers. So also, I was starting my career, I was quite young, and I was already sort of engaging with decision makers, directors of companies who needed to make a choice about how they would engage themselves with the carbon market to finance their decarbonization effort. And 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to start my own carbon market consulting firm with the desire to dedicate all my energy and my team's energy to supporting decarbonization efforts, mostly in developing countries, Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South America.
So let's walk us through that. Let's talk about an actual example of a project that you've led or you've worked on, so that our viewers have a better understanding of exactly what you do. Take us through maybe an example.
We can take an example of a project that I worked on for a very long time. 3.5 million people die every year out of indoor air pollution. People cooking with 3 stones on the ground, putting firewood, charcoal, burning it, bending over the cooking pot and then breathing the smoke going into the eyes of the mother cooking most of the time, into the eyes of children's being around in the kitchen. And this is cooking. This is a very inefficient way of cooking. And one of the first projects that I worked on is supporting household to switch away from cooking with 3 stones on the ground to cooking with a more elaborated technology that would save energy, that would reduce the smoke inside the house, and that would reduce pressure on forest, because that sort of technology consumed a lot of wood, depleting forest. And so that activities supported carbon to remain in forests, and the carbon market basically give a price, an economic value to this carbon being sequestered in the forest. And if you can quantify the carbon that remains in the forest as a result of you helping households to cook with more energy efficient devices, then you can obtain carbon credits, 1 carbon credits for 1 ton of carbon dioxide remaining in the forest, and you can sell those carbon credits on the market so that you can finance this activity of supporting households to switch away from cooking with very inefficient technology. That's an issue, and across Southeast Asia and the least developed areas. It's an issue in sub-Saharan Africa. It's an issue in many other countries.
Wow, it's amazing. I don't know, Mr. Art, thoughts on that?
Yeah, you said 3.5 million per year.
3.5
million. And that, how long ago is that?
So every year, 3.5 million people die out of indoor air pollution. So that's more than HIV, malaria, and typhoid combined. 3 of the selling disease, but no one is really talking about this. So silent killer. So if you're able to use carbon, selling carbon credits onto the markets to finance activities that support households to cook more healthily, more efficiently, then you reduce greenhouse gas emissions, you improve the health of household, and you're saving forest areas.
And while you are dealing with these issues and trying to bring awareness, what do you find is the most challenging part in dealing with these issues?
The most difficult part is twofold, I guess. The first one is the complexity of the mechanism. Carbon finance is a fairly complex mechanism. It's coming out of international climate change negotiations and international treaties such as the Paris agreements, and it's grounded into complexity because it was made by 190 countries having to agree on a common set of rules, and so that brings a lot of barriers to it brings a lot of challenges to using this financing mechanism. The second one is obviously finding companies to pay for those carbon credits, to pay for this climate change impact, and for that you need companies that are conscious about the issue around climate change, companies that think that their customer care about the social and environmental impact that this company have.
And you probably see which part of the world really focus on this and advancing on this carbon credits issue.
So we're seeing a lot of historically China, India, Mexico, Brazil, where economies in transition that grew very fast over the past sort of decade, and they have benefited a lot from this mechanism. Since 2014, Thailand has come up with their own scheme to quantify carbon emissions from project reducing greenhouse gas emission. It's called the Thai Voluntary Emission Reduction Program. It provides a frameworks and rules for accounting carbon for projects that are implemented and that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, supporting the national climate change objectives of reducing global greenhouse gas emissions.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about carbon markets and carbon credits. Olivier, not everybody really understands the carbon markets and carbon credits and how that all works. So let's take a moment and maybe elaborate further on what is carbon credits, how do they work, and most importantly, why are they important?
So carbon credits is a certificate then 1 ton of carbon dioxide has been either removed from the atmosphere or avoided to be going into the atmosphere. The way it works is, it is here to be generated, for projects that have a lower carbon impact than the common practice. I'm going to take an example here. The common practice maybe in Thailand is, when it comes to waste, is for the waste to be disposed in an open landfill. So what does that mean? Is that the waste decompose, and methane and other greenhouse gas emissions get emitted into the atmosphere. So that contributes to greenhouse gas emission concentration into the atmosphere, and then in the longer term, global warming. If you want to stop this, and if you invest in a technology that captures all the gas and prevent it to go into the atmosphere, you capture it and then you burn it, then you would have prevented this carbon emissions to go into the atmosphere. But obviously, this is an investment. This is money. So most of the time, there's no financial incentive to do so. This would not be taking place. And so this mechanism works in effect in giving 1 carbon credits for 1 ton of carbon dioxide destroyed through this technology that is, covering, for instance, a landfill. So that's your source of revenue. Over the next 20 years, we'll give you 1 carbon credits, 1 certificate of, a ton of carbon dioxide has been avoided. Each time you can demonstrate that you have burned 1 ton of carbon dioxide. And these certificates, you will be able to sell them to either the big companies in Thailand who want to support this sort of activities and, climate change strategy, as part of their marketing or communication or corporate social responsibility strategies. And then you'll get the money for that, which will enable you to pay for this activity. That works for waste management. That can work also for wind power, for solar power, for energy efficiency in buildings, for switching from petrol, motorbike, here in Bangkok, for instance, to electric vehicle motorbikes. You will be reducing emissions from not burning the gas oil. All these activities in theory can generate those certificates that they can sell to finance this switch from a high carbon intensive technology to a lower carbon technology.
We were actually talking about that earlier offline, about there may be carbon credit opportunity here in Thailand with incentivizing the transition from, as you mentioned, gasoline-powered motorbikes to electric EV-powered motorbikes in this market. And so with that, I want to kind of localize this a little bit. I know, Mr. R, you had some questions around the regulatory environment here in Thailand.
Yeah, one of the issue that a lot of Thai people are maybe are talking about right now is the Climate Change Act of Thailand. I'm not sure how you see this, or whether this would improve or make changes to the Thai society or population.
The government of Thailand has throughout the international negotiation on climate change, made a commitment to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions drastically. Thailand is one of the most vulnerable countries when it comes to climate change. It is prone to flooding. It is prone to drought. That's a country that relies heavily on agriculture. So potentially climate change in Thailand can have catastrophic impacts. And so the government has set up a strategy, a long-term development, low-carbon strategy, to have all the sectors of the economy to lower their carbon footprint. But obviously it comes at a cost, and it's complex to incentivize every single organization to reduce their carbon footprint. So what Thailand is currently doing with the Climate Change Act is putting in place a plan for the biggest polluters in the country: cement manufacturing, oil and gas producers, electricity producers, to have to report their greenhouse gas emissions to the governments on a yearly basis. And then they will start having what we call an emission trading schemes, which will basically have these companies, a bigger company, have permits to pollute. They will have, for instance, a big company will have 20,000 permits to emit 20,000 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. and they can't emit more than that. And every year, the number of permits will reduce, and companies will have to find a way to decarbonize, or they will have to pay a fine. So it's, the Climate Change Act will set in place a mechanism that incentivize and give a long-term policy visibility to the large organization, large company in the country to start investing into lower carbon technology, because it makes financial sense for them to do so.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated by twofold. One, how, over the decades now, there's been a movement towards establishing carbon markets. In the first place, obviously reducing carbon is in the best interest, if you will, emissions is in the best interest of the natural environment, of society, not just here in Thailand, but across the world. But to create a financial incentive or penalty associated with it, I think I can think of nothing more effective. And frankly, something that, if you're a capitalist or not, makes a lot of sense. And the role that the government is playing, both in Thailand, Southeast Asia, across Europe, across Africa, in North America, where I am home based in the United States, as the regulatory market continues to evolve, as you said, you're going to see more incentive, or some might say penalties associated with it, which has financial implications that I think are going to continue to drive the carbon markets forward as a bigger and bigger part of our economy. So, here in Thailand, I think is as Olivier mentioned, is especially vulnerable. You were showing a presentation a few weeks back that I saw where you were talking about just I think it was a 1 meter rise.
Sea level rise, yeah.
Yeah, what that could do in terms of the coast of Thailand, which was devastating. And you're talking about not only a loss of quality of life and actual lives, but the economic impact associated with people being able to provide for their families. And so I think this is just going to be an ever increasing and an important part of the conversation in this market. Were you going to add on to that, Mr.?
I was thinking about the practicality for these Thai businesses and corporates to actually have to follow up with these changes in regulation. So I just want to ask whether, in your own perspective, how practical it is for these companies to take in the detailed changes of the regulation.
It is often a complex system that is set in place, and the regulator will have to support the Thai company to use the system. But it's also only going to be targeting the largest company to start with. First of all, because they are the largest points of pollutions, of emissions of greenhouse gas emissions, but also because they have greater capacity and staff and technical capabilities to use this system. So the way it works, usually company will start being requested to account their carbon emission every year and report this to the regulator. And then based on that, the regulator will start accounting how many permits they want to give to each of these companies. And imagine, and that's kind of how it works in other countries where they have emission trading schemes. You will start seeing those larger companies having small teams internally dedicated to accounting for carbon and buying or selling the permits that they don't want they don't need, or that they need more of. And so we'll see those larger companies becoming advocates for carbon trading, and once the time comes where a smaller organization need to join the scheme, those larger companies will have a lot to share, and they will be able to provide also a lot of services around, carbon trading.
Yeah. So, as the market continues to evolve, the regulatory, oversight continues to become more, I'll say,
prominent.
I think it screams to me like organizations like Hamerkop and the need for, the services and expertise that you all provide are going to become more important. So it sounds to me like, you're in a good market yourself as a leading company, here in not only Southeast Asia, but in Europe. So talk to us a little bit about kind of Hamerkop and where you all are headed.
So Hamerkop is a technical consulting firm It was, started when I was living in the United Kingdom, so it's headquartered in UK, but also has offices in Singapore, and I'm based in Singapore. And it provides technical services across, a project, market, and policy on projects. So we support all companies basically and associations who wants to benefit from carbon finance, whether they have a product ideas, they want to issue carbon certificates or carbon credits. They want to buy carbon credits to support products that are reducing greenhouse gas emissions. They want to invest in product, and then we would help them with technical support to understand what is a good project, how to use the product certification mechanism to deliver and sell carbon credits. On the market side of things, we could help them understand, what is the market going to look like tomorrow? The market for carbon credits. Who will be buying these carbon credits? Where are the opportunity to decarbonize the economy in Thailand? Is it in agriculture? Is it in waste management? Is it in energy consumption, generation? A lot of question marks in the market that starts up. Where will be the opportunity to play a role in the carbon market system, like intermediating between buyers and sellers, or supporting, providing technical services to product developers, NGOs who need to often find a relay of financing and no longer want to fully rely on philanthropy and donation. They can think of this mechanism as a way to finance some of their activities related to maybe forestry, agriculture. And so, as a technical consultancy, we, help pretty much everyone who wants to know something about the carbon market, about selling carbon credits, who want to take advantage of this mechanism, who want to expand it further in the country. And here in Thailand, all these large organizations, they're listed to the stock exchange of Bangkok, and they need to know and understand, how this mechanism works, so that they can actually use them and potentially drain international funding, from international treaty like the Paris Agreement, to bring funding to Thailand to finance decarbonization of the economy. So there's a lot of, it's kind of a technical field, and I'm we'll need the students from STC to really sort of build up the skills, have the willingness to really make an impact, and then integrate all these big companies and learn, and then start influencing the decisions that are being made in this organization to make sure that their future is at stake. So they want to make sure the company they work for, they care about the environment. Not just about the profit, but broader, longer term visions. And at the end of the day, what is a business is a group of people. And the young people, the younger generation starting today, or that is just arriving to the job market, they have a tremendous role to play. In 10 years from now, they will be the directors, senior management in all these organizations, and they will be the decision makers.
So Olivier, this is, I think, a great segment, or to kind of pivot to talking about advice. Because this is a sustainability education podcast, and we have students, young professionals that probably have a lot of questions about what can I do in my education and or my career so that I can one day be like Olivier and run my Hamerkop, or be an expert in carbon markets or carbon credit. So let's start there. If you were sitting down with students from Siam Technology College, or for that matter, any college, university here in Thailand or around the world, what would be one or two pieces of advice you'd give them?
Study a technical field. It doesn't have to be engineering, but it can be engineering. It can be forest science. It could be natural ecosystem, but it also could be financial, engineering and modeling, to the best of your ability. Be curious, and, you shouldn't wait to be about to graduate to try to understand what are the job opportunities, what are the segments that will tomorrow be performing and requiring the sort of skills that you have. And there's with internet, there's a lot of information that is out there. So pick a field that you're interested. If that's carbon finance or carbon credits, you can follow, for instance, Thailand Greenhouse Gas Management organizations. They've got a website, they've got newsletters, they're talking about the carbon market on a monthly basis. get exposed to that. There are very few people in Thailand that have got this knowledge today. That means that if you are starting to acquire this knowledge, in 2 years from now, or in a 3 or 4 year old market, if you got 2 years of experience, you're an expert. So it doesn't take 10 years or 15 years to be an expert. And so pick a field that you're interested in, be curious, learn, get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn maybe not the most used platform in Thailand, but some Thai professionals do use it. There's a lot of information exchange. There's a lot that you can learn from other people posting and exchanging with each others. And so curiosity is the most important. Go to conference, volunteer to conferences.
And start now. I mean, I think one of the things you said is, you don't have to wait. You like to start learning, to be curious, to ask questions, to pick a field that you want to focus on, technical or business or otherwise. I mean, Mr. Art, you work with students here at STC all the time. What do you think they would be asking someone like Olivier?
Well, maybe if they already have chosen a field that is not, let's say, not technical in terms of something that relates to the environment, what advice would you have for them, for these new graduates, let's say?
I think anyone that I think earlier you're saying, Ryan, that the Korean economy is going to be booming. And so that means basically we will see decarbonization become a really important segment of the economy. And this is a cross-cutting sort of, aspect of the economy. And so there will be job in relation to that for everyone, whether you are, you have a very high qualification like a PhD, or whether you have a lower academic qualifications. You'll always be able to find yourself in team that works, in maybe implementation instead of designing, maybe in running project, taking care of the maintenance of solar power plants, for instance, or supporting groups of farmers in the region to switch to a more resilient crop to adapt to future climate change. So, anyone who's willing to help, there will be a job for them in this field.
Yeah, and the report you were referring to that I touched on earlier, I mean, it's estimated that there'll be tens of millions. I've seen estimates as high as 30 million sustainability-related jobs added to the global economy by 2030. 40% of those jobs are expected to be right here in Southeast Asia. That's 12 million jobs. So talk about opportunity to, do something that you're committed to, whether it be protecting the environment, but also opportunity to provide for yourself, your family, and your loved ones. And I think that's one of the exciting things about what's happening in the sustainability field is the economic opportunity that's going to come out of that. So with that, it's time we wrap up this episode of S3, the Sustaining Success Series, Siam Technology College's Sustainability Education Podcast. I want to thank our guest, Mr. Olivier from Hamerkop, for being with us today and giving your perspective, your insights, and your expertise. We hope that the students and young professionals and others who might listen to this podcast will find his insights to be of value to them. On behalf of myself, Ryan Frazier, and my cohort, Mr. Art, and on behalf of Siam Technology College. Till next time.